What's going on, everybody? You are listening to the Co-Living Show. My name is Craig Curelop,
Miller McSwain.
and we've got a little bit of a different episode for you today. We are interviewing the CEO of a little company called Furnished Finder, Jeff Hurst. And I would say we've got some really great insights on how Furnished Finder is going to be starting to play into the co-living world. And we wanted you guys to hear it here first. Miller, what do you think of today's episode?
Yeah, definitely super timely. Furnished Finder is getting more and more into the co-living space. It's always been there. It was probably like Room Rental V 1.0, I feel like was Furnished Finder's realm. And it's just evolved into a different platform as co-living has evolved a different way. But now they're super excited to jump back in and get involved with the space. So yeah, today we learned a lot about what is Furnished Finder's plans for the future, but also how can you use the platform today. And it literally is a platform that Craig and I use to help fill up the rooms. It's one of many sources, but it is an essential part of our playbook.
Yeah, and just to give you kind of an example, like right now, what we talk about a little bit is that Furnished Finder's big problem right now is that there's too much demand and not enough supply. So they're looking to bring on more supply. And a big part of who the audience that they're filling are people who are just like renting rooms. And so rather than bring on a bunch of individual landlords who can only supply one or two units, by bringing on co-living, they're now each landlord is now supplying 8 to 10 units, which obviously is a little bit easier lift to get to their supply demand economics there. Anyway, it's a really interesting episode, guys. Different from what we usually do, but just listen to it all the way through and you'll see how we tie it back into co-living and all that kind of stuff. But there's definitely some really good conversations had. Dude, we just like jumped right into it, man. Kind of offended you didn't even ask me how I was or
All business. Wait,
how my day was or like whatever, man.
I don't know. Yeah. How's your day? It's the same thing when my wife comes home sometimes. If you don't ask like right away, and she's like, you didn't even ask me about my day. I'm like, well, I had really cool things that happened today. I had to tell you about first. So that's what happened here. We really had to
Yeah,
tell you guys about Furnished Finder. Now we get to the second most important thing. Craig, how's your day?
but it's pretty good, man. We just got goats.
Oh, there we
I
go.
think I told you that. Yeah, we just got goats, and that was pretty exciting. And we almost lost our goats, but then we found our goats. So that was an interesting dynamic. And so we're continuing to add residents with lots of legs. We've got a lot of legs on our property, but not many of them are
It's not
actually
about property count or unit count or door count anymore. It's how many legs do you have in your
how
property?
many legs. Yeah, and with every animal is actually 4 legs, so it's way
Uh,
better to count it by legs than eyes because it makes our
oh, how
numbers
many?
look better. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're
So
going to be
if you
like
guys
multi.
start allowing pets in your co-living properties, you'll probably surpass mine and Craig's leg count in our properties like pretty quick if you allow pets.
That is true. Yeah,
Like a centipede. How many legs does a centipede have?
I think 100. Isn't that why it's called a centipede?
I don't know. How many does a millipede have?
1,000.
That would be crazy. I'm gonna have to go look that up. We'll see. All
Yeah.
right.
All right. Anyway, we got a question from the community today. Our good friend Mary Ann Laflamme, probably Laflamme in English, but Laflamme in French. I have a personal property. It needs to be rehabbed. It is not in a pad split area. So the first step must be zoning. Question mark. Where can I find steps to follow protocol procedures and expectations?
Okay. I'll set this up a little bit, Craig, but I'll probably let you take most of it. I think you've done more remodels and bigger remodels than I have. So some of the zoning regulation type things to pay attention to. First up would be the unrelated occupant rules for the area. I don't know if this would technically fall under zoning, but it definitely is a regulation you want to pay attention to. So that's how many people are you allowed, how many unrelated people are allowed to live in a house together. So it definitely will have an impact on your rehab, on your remodel plan, like how many bedrooms can you have legally. So that's one thing you want to look into. You can look up whatever city's municipal code. And if you go search in there the words unrelated or unrelated persons, things like that, you'll probably find it. I'm even seeing more and more city codes these days that have co-living, like co-living as an official use case also. So that's something else you'll want to search for. And that does get more into the zoning question. Like, for example, I was looking in, I forget which suburb of Denver, but I was looking at their municipal code and they had co-living defined. And it said that the use case of the co-living zoning is only in R2 or higher. So it was saying you're not allowed to do co-living in the suburb unless you are in R2 zoning, which is usually a duplex or higher. So anyway, that's a couple of the things you might want to look up in the codes.
Yeah, and I ultimately think the granddaddy of it all is going to be the unrelated code there. And I would say like where you can find the steps to follow it is honestly these days just ask ChatGPT, ask Claude, ask whatever like AI you're using, and then also tell your AI to cite the references and then go check the references. Like you don't want to take Claude's advice for what it is, but if they can point you to an official government document or something like that and not like a blog article from colivingbros.com or whatever, like that's where you'll get, that's where you want to see your information is .gov is the magic.
Yeah, and even more specifically, so municipal codes are very hard to read, and at least there's like 20 different suburbs of Denver, and we have stuff in Colorado Springs. We have properties all over the place. And I did this recently because I wanted to make sure that we were up to snuff and abiding by all the regulations and everything. So to go even further to make sure that you do have good info, I went myself to each of those municipal code sites, clicked download, and got like this ginormous 700-page PDF per city. And then I put that into Claude and asked it to read it for Lakewood or for whatever and ask it for its result. So that's even just one step further to make sure that you're getting the right info back.
Awesome. Yeah. Before we get into this episode with Jeff, we wanted to let everybody know that we are continuously, first off, Miller and I hit a huge milestone. We've officially achieved the 90% occupancy mark in our portfolio after some huge lifts from Miller. And so kudos to him. And so we are now we're running into the issue of we need more rooms. And so we are buying more and more properties. If you are interested in partnering with us, just shoot me a DM. I'm Craig Curelop on Instagram, and we'll touch base after that. With that being said, let's get into the show. Jeff Hurst, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing today, man?
That is a pleasure to be here. I'm doing well. I've got a little bit of World Cup fever, but it's a great day because those matches don't start for a while.
Yeah, who you got?
Oh my God. I'll be rooting for America overall, and they play tonight. But overall, I'm in a friends gambling Calcutta about World Cup, and my big pick is Brazil. So I guess I'm long Brazil, and I'm long Canada, which might not work out. South Africa was a good win for me, but I'm just watching I'm watching World Cup, and I didn't think I would be, but I'm watching it all the time.
Yeah, it's weird because like I don't really care much for soccer. I do like it every 4 years though for the World Cup, but it's cool how it
Yep.
truly like brings the whole world together.
It's awesome. It's so cool having it in the States.
Yeah, it's so cool having it here. So like my grandparents, they're pretty old. They're like in their 90s, and they go sing at this bar every 2 weeks. And the bar is not far from Foxborough, Massachusetts. And that's where a bunch of the games were playing. So they go to this bar and they're expecting just like a normal old time singing old music and stuff. And all these Scots show up and they know the songs. And my grandma just had the time of her life with all these
That's
Scottish
awesome.
people. So it just brought, I don't know, it was just cool to see just the world coming together over
Yeah.
sports. That's special. Anyway, we didn't come here to talk about the World Cup and sports, although I probably could talk about that for a while. Jeff, tell us about your CEO of Furnished Finder. I think everyone knows, so great job, what Furnished Finder is. We don't need to go into that. But tell us like how Furnished Finder plays into the co-living room strategy and how that works out.
Yeah, I think I'd say there's two misunderstandings about Furnished Finder broadly. One is that it's only traveling nurses, and traveling healthcare has actually become our third largest tenant category. And so it's no longer the vast majority of the business. And the second misconception is that it's all whole homes. A lot of people really associate us with, oh, I go to Furnished Finder so I can get a whole home, similar to how maybe 15 years ago you'd think about, oh, I go to Airbnb or Vrbo so I can get something bigger than a hotel room. Actually, about 20% of our inventory at Furnished Finder is rooms. And so I think we're probably, Airbnb might be close. I don't know their numbers, but we're way bigger than any of the other marketplaces in terms of furnished flexible rooms. We've got almost 70,000 now on the site, but at any given time there's less because they're booked. But that compares to like apartments.com or Zillow. They've got more like 5 to 10,000. And so if you're a tenant, there's a lot of choice to be had here. And it's our fastest growing product on the site, not because people prefer rooms, but because people do prefer affordable. And so it's actually growing. I think it's grown 6 times. It's grown 600% over the past 2 years of demand to our rooms product. And so it's off the charts. And my enthusiasm for it is if Furnished Finder's got a problem, it's that we don't have enough rooms. Like we don't have enough inventory to support the tenant need. And co-living's a little bit of broadly, I think it's been a big part of the site. We don't have a co-living specific product. Like you've got 8 rooms in your house, and so we're going to have this special merchandise product for 8 rooms. That's something I want to build. What we do have is a room by room product, which I think is a version of co-living, but maybe not the purest version of what feels more like a large format single family.
Can you tell us a little bit about how I guess curious about the differences between the
Um,
what you're building, what you have.
what we have is you buy a listing that is advertising a room and whether it has a private or a shared bath. And so you pay an annual fee for that listing. It functionally works a lot like buying a whole home listing. The other products we have we have a complex product, which helps you buy, maybe you've got a multi-unit where you've got 8 different or even 20 different units that are all more studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. And that helps you merchandise that there's this building with lots of inventory in it. I think the gap that we don't have is something that's a blend of that complex product and a rooms product, something that lets you see there's 8 rooms in this house. You can see where they are in a floor plan. You can see which ones are booked and not booked. I don't think none of the platforms have that product. I think we're an interesting player to actually build it and make it possible because it would help you sell the subscription cheaper than what we do for a single room listing because it is still one physical address, but provide a lot more context to the tenant around, okay, there's 2 in suites and 6 that are shared bath, and where's the bath and what's the layout. And that can get pretty confusing, I think, with our product. I think a lot of times people will advertise 1 room in a house, but you don't actually know which room it is. And I think some of the operators are doing that because they're advertising 8 rooms for the price of 1. And I don't blame you for it, but that's something we want to close the gap on to make it a better tenant experience so you really know what you're getting.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll jump in real quick and say, so Craig and I on our portfolio that we manage, we do use Furnished Finder and we use that current product that you're talking about, which is super helpful. You guys should definitely use it. We do get tenants through that channel. But yeah, one thing about Furnished Finder is it was primarily created and has mostly been used for like midterm, like standalone units that have a living room, they have a kitchen, and you buy that annual type subscription that you're talking about. And great, now someone stays there for 2 months, traveling nurse or other, stays there for 2 months, and then it goes vacant. All right, you need to get it listed again. Stays there for 3-4 months. Okay, it goes vacant, blah, blah, blah. So that is one thing that we've seen on the room side is that, yeah, our rooms might be vacant for 2 to 3 weeks, but they stay filled up for a year. So we don't need that subscription again until the next year. So anyway, this potential pivot sounds super interesting because we would absolutely need a whole house subscription lease. It's just within there will be 8 rooms that are turning.
Yeah, you don't need to pay $1,200 for a 6-bedroom house because you need 6 listings, but you might be happy to pay $400 or $500 for a 6-bedroom house that would have cost $1,200 and give you more flexibility. And we have not built this product, but it is something I've observed from getting closer to the space. I think it's a gap. I think it is an industry gap and something we could potentially lead on.
So tell us how you differentiate from pad split or how you play with pad split. How does it work?
My background is I was the president of Verbo. I was the chief operating officer at Expedia Group. I have a lot of short-term rental OTA experience. And to me, Pad Split is just like one of our big customers when I was at Verbo or when I was at Expedia. Pad Split is probably I think they're probably our biggest customer at Furnished Finder in terms of the number of listings they buy. I don't think of them as a competitor. I am sure that their products show up next to ours in Google search and marketing channels and all that, and great for them. I'm happy for what Cliff and Atticus are building over there, but I think of them as a partner. I'd like to have more than 1,000 of their rooms on our platform, but I appreciate that the reason I'll probably never have all of them is exactly what you're describing of thousands of them in a year-long situation. They just don't need marketing services all the time. And so there's a product gap we need to fit for them. I really admire their approach to being mission-centric in terms of what Atticus is trying to do with it. And I think that societally, we just need a lot more affordable housing. We need more co-living product, and we're going to need big companies. We're going to need entrepreneurs within our supply base, our 60,000 listings. It's 98% landlords who have 3 or fewer listings on our site. It is entirely this kind of independent landlord crowd. That's what our mission is. Our mission is to help independent landlords create flexibility and wealth and to help tenants do the same thing with flexible and affordable housing.
Yeah. So for our listeners who are wondering how they can best use Furnished Finder. So if they are using Pad Split and they're listed on Pad Split and that's part of their management strategy, are they automatically listed on Furnished Finder and they're already getting those benefits, or do they still need to go list there outside of Pad Split too?
It's a conversation for them to have with Pad Split. So Pad Split would have a preferred rate to get their product onto Furnished Finder. Whether Pad Split thinks they need Furnished Finder for a specific house or room is really up to Pad Split more than it is Furnished Finder. I have a obviously biased opinion there, but it would make more sense for them to go through Pad Split because Pad Split gets a bulk discount.
So I'd say, but there's two elements to that, right? Where like I believe with pad split now, they waive they waive some fee, right? I think it's the
First
first
10
10 days.
days.
First 10 days at 100%. So they waive that if you find your own tenant.
Oh,
So and you also have no control over how much, whether pad split puts your listing on Furnished Finder, or I don't know if there's any, like, if they can flex like how many views it gets or not. But if you were to just go as an individual to Furnished Finder, then you would avoid that 8%.
I think that if for some reason, yes, what you're describing sounds right, but I don't work at pad split. I think if you're charging $1,000 a night or $1,000 a month, so you're making about $30 a night. If you can get at least up 10 days faster, you've paid for the Furnished Finder subscription plus 50%. And 75% of our customers get demand within the first 30 days. I think it is even higher at the lower price points. And I'm in the camp of, if you're nervous about getting a booking and getting a tenant, then you should absolutely be on Furnished Finder. Once you've had a tenant, you know a lot more, but lease up is the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed what is like the demographic of the typical Furnished Finder resident?
So one thing on talk a little bit about who the tenants are and then some of the supply characteristics. Almost 30% of the tenants shopping for room rentals are corporate travelers. I think the majority of that is skilled trade. And so it's people who may be relocating because they're doing the drywall at a shopping center that's going up outside of where they live, or they're electricians. They're traveling for work, but actually have a pretty low stipend, or they even need to pay for it themselves because they're a small business. So 30% corporate, about 25% is healthcare, which is overwhelmingly your traveling nurse. They will frequently travel in small groups, and so might take multiple rooms at the same place, or they'll get a larger format Furnished Finder. And then between 10 and 15% is academic. That's typically grad students and professors. And so as I think about the rooms product, the holy grail is kind of be close to a commuter corridor that's near a university and near a hospital. And then you've got the potential to be attracting a lot of different tenant types. In terms of the supply characteristics, our median rooms price is about $1,200 a month. That's about half of what our medium whole home price is. And within that, we're about 65% have private baths. And we do see that private baths get $150 to $200 plus in price point. And so when you look at the price point bifurcation, if it's less than $1,000 a month, and in particular less than $800, it's almost all shared bath.
Okay, that's actually really good data. Do you see any sort of correlation, or do you track? Are there rooms like on Furnished Finder where there's 8 to 10 bedrooms in a house? Into those, I think that more or less traction.
Yeah, I actually think that's to the missing product in my portfolio. I think that's actually the thing I know the least about, because I think it is, unfortunately for my business, probably uncommon that somebody buys 8 listings in the same house on my site. I think they buy one. And I probably only know about one in terms of what data I've got real observability into.
Right. And that makes sense, because if you just buy one and there's 6 other rooms vacant, you just got to get them there for a showing, and you can show them the 6 other rooms, right?
Yeah, or you buy the representative unit. I certainly encourage everyone to abide by our T's and C's and FAQs. And if you buy a room and get a booking, please block your calendar and buy another one, because we both did our job, and the thing I do costs money. But I get it.
Yeah,
everybody's got to hustle.
Yep.
Yeah, in that line of things that you're talking about there, Jeff. So you mentioned that like the average price might be like $1,200 a month or so for a room. And I'll say that does sound high to me as someone who's renting on places that are also like not Furnished Finder. But I'm just curious, I wonder if a piece of that is that when we're on Zillow and we're on other places like that, these are definitely longer term type rentals at that point, like 10 month, 12 month, 16 month, whatever. When someone lists on Furnished Finder, how long is the stay typically? And do you think that's contributing maybe to a higher premium for like flexibility for a shorter stay, if that's the case?
I think you've got 2 things that probably increase the monthly rate versus a core co-living product, something that's 6 or more rooms in a single family. One of the things is they are shorter stays. So our rooms average lease length is very similar to our whole homes, which is about 3 months. Okay. And so you're typically there for 3-ish months. Obviously, everything's at least a month. It's common to have people in for years, though. So I think that's one thing. I also think that probably our product, and I don't have great data beyond my anecdotal searching of our site and comparing it to what the co-living product looks like. I think it's very common that a rooms product on Furnished Finder might be the primary bedroom suite in a single family home, or the detached ADU above a garage apartment, or something that's actually just like a much bigger physical space. because someone is renting out a room in their house that they also live in. And it's not as much. And so you're probably paying a little bit of a premium for more real estate, and you're probably paying a little bit of a premium for higher turnover. From a tenant type perspective, I also think that there may be more willingness to pay because you are frequently on a stipend. Someone told you you've got a $1,300 budget for the 4-month project when you're going to be in Abilene. You're going to spend $1,300. It's not your money. It's not nearly the same as I'm trying to balance my pocketbook and I need to make this work.
Okay. Super interesting point. Yeah. It's like the demographic that is on there, that's on Furnished Finder, is getting paid on contracts that has some sort of limit. So they go up to that limit. It's kind of like in the midterm space, like we hear a lot about the insurance play where you can go after the insurance companies and potentially get leads for your rooms or your properties that way. And then you get a much higher premium because insurance companies give you a much bigger budget than you might have in real life.
Yeah,
You go to the property.
The insurance company may be looking at your family and saying, how much is it going to cost for me to get 2 to 3 rooms at the Marriott?
Mhm.
And they're thrilled to only pay for 1.5 rooms at the Marriott, which is a rental on Furnished Finder.
Can you paint us a picture of what a furnished room looks like that high odds of getting booked?
Yeah, I think it would be one. There are certainly the expectations that you've got linens. I think high quality bedding from the standpoint of comfortable, not high quality like 1,200 thread count sheets and all that stuff, but comfortable bedding, clean, safe. You've got locks, you've got all your automation, and that you've got access to everything you need to use the kitchen, to eat, those sorts of things. I don't have a database point of view as to whether the average accommodation is 120 square foot bedroom or 350 square foot bedroom or what that looks like. What I encourage people to do on the room rental, I think, is to treat it most similar to what does the pricing and layout look like versus an extended stay America, where, and think about an extended stay America, it's got a kitchenette and it's got a private bath. That's typically going to end up being probably close to $1,500, $1,600 a month. In an expensive city, it might be more. And that's probably a 350 square foot product. And so if you can use that as an anchor reference point of if you're providing something that's 150 square foot, but maybe has more shared spaces, maybe has a different type of amenity structure around it, how would that compare to that extended stay America experience?
That's a good way to look at it. Are you seeing like bells and whistles in the rooms that matter,
No.
like TVs, desks, lights that have 3 settings, whatever, like that kind of stuff?
I think the things that we merchandise has workspace. The biggest is private or shared bath, but that's like a decision that gets made earlier. It's not a furnishing decision.
Yeah.
Private or shared bath is a very big one. The size of the bed, I think, is a reasonably big one in terms of, is it a single? Is it a twin? Is it a full? Is it even up to a king? I think kings would be pretty rare in co-living, but they're probably not that rare in our broader room rental program of like just a bedroom in someone's house, a guest room type of situation. After bed for our customers, I think private workspace would be pretty high. You think about who's there, in particular academics traveling for work. They may not be as comfortable doing that at a shared kitchen table as having a small desk or space in the room to work from. And I actually think TV's probably one, you can get a TV pretty cheap now. So I think it is worth exploring. If you can get one for $100, it's a worthwhile experiment to try it. But there's also a lot more comfort in that a lot of these people are traveling with some sort of technology where they can watch TV on their desk or in their bed with what they brought.
Sure. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. So I just want to remind everyone here, we're talking about higher rents for a more premium product, it sounds like. So like, for example, in most of the co-living realm, I would say beds are not typically actually like dressed, or like the bed is provided, but it doesn't have pillows, doesn't have 1,200 thread count or whatever you were talking about there. So I do want everyone to remember Furnished Finder might, at least currently, appeal more towards that sort of premium sort of product that Jeff's been talking about here. But really, that does translate to higher rents, which could totally make this worth it. Like maybe if you're using Furnished Finder and you're doing this more premium type product, maybe you can have a 6-bedroom house that cash flows. Whereas, like every day, whenever we talk on this show, we're talking about you need to get 8 bedrooms, 9 bedrooms, 10 bedrooms to get these things to pencil. But that is like the kind of average rents we're getting for like our average type room. And this does seem to be a little bit more high quality. So I just want to put that into reference.
Yeah, I think you may be spending more money outfitting the room, have slightly more vacancy, but getting enough of a rate benefit to where you can save a lot of the money that it takes to outfit into a larger format co-living in the first place. And that's where the market research and potentially just creating a listing on Furnished Finder can be helpful early, is that you can create a listing that shows the room unfurnished and basically say, we're going to furnish this room. And if you advertise it at $1,200, describe, good news, you get to actually be involved in picking the bedding and the linen and the outfit for this room. Because at $1,200, you may feel really good as an operator that if you can go turn that over 12 months a year at $1,200, you're happy to spend an extra $400 on bedding and linens because you don't have to change them out that often.
Yeah, it's absolutely a math problem.
Yeah, and I think the use case to keep in mind for this demographic we're appealing to, corporate, academic, traveling healthcare, they're not moving there full time. Their sheets and their bedding and all that is somewhere else where they live. Mm-hmm. And so you're really solving a real problem for them by not putting the burden on them to buy it, in particular if you think you're going to be able to reuse it for the next tenant.
Yeah. What's interesting is a lot of people go on pad split. So the pad split demographic is totally different than the Furnished Finder demographic.
And, pad split serves our most budget conscious traveler in my experience. And I wouldn't say it's totally different just because it is a use case that exists on Furnished Finder, but they don't have a lot of product that appeals to what I'd say our higher end rooms product of $1,200 plus.
Right. Like I think you're going to see a professor come in to study for 3 months in Denver or something using Furnished Finder and booking a room through that avenue, even though they may have no intention of booking a room. To start, they'd probably go on Furnished Finder and then find a pretty decent room and then go forward with that versus going to pad split and finding a room that way, even though it's the same product.
Yeah, and I think the odds of like a professor at UC Boulder, there's probably not product on pad split as close to where they're going to be working compared to what they might find in some of the neighborhoods on Furnished Finder. There's just different occasions. What's important to us, we are not a premium brand in terms of we're not $10,000, $20,000 homes. We're not the pickleball courts and luxury pools and the stuff for leisure on Airbnb. Overwhelmingly, we're more than 70% of our products 2-bedroom or smaller. And our average price point overall is $2,200 a month. This is much cheaper than a short-term occasion. And I think the use case we're actually missing a lot of is the sub $1,000 product, which co-living can really appeal to, whether it's 8 bedrooms or 6 bedrooms. And I think there's probably a niche in there that's underserved, which I'd say a more standard single family rented out as co-living at a higher price point. But I don't have a lot of people that are proving the thesis. I just think that it's probably out there.
Yeah. How has it changed over the last few years? Because we're seeing long-term rentals take a huge hit on rents are going down, even co-living rents are going down, all that kind of stuff. Are you seeing
just to set the stage a little bit? So like in Denver, where Craig and I do a lot of our co-living stuff, Craig was doing it in Denver before I was, like a year or two ago. Craig, didn't you say you were getting like over $1,000 for a private room previously?
We were getting $1,100 for a private room with a bathroom pretty easily. Now it seems like we can't even get $1,000. Even my long-term rentals, there's a similar trend. I used to have a 1-bedroom that we'd rent out for $1,800. I'm barely getting $1,400 now. So rents are just getting hammered. And I'm just wondering, is Furnished Finder seeing that at all?
As a disclaimer, we're not a booking platform. We're a classified site. So I don't see all of the final rates that are paid and what might get negotiated between when somebody inquires on a home and pays. We do see a reasonable amount, double-digit percentage of the activity. And then what I do know is what everybody's advertising their homes for. A few kind of like points of interest. As a business, in terms of tenants and supply, we're growing very fast. And so we're adding a lot of supply, call it like high single digits, but we're adding way more tenants, call it like 20 to 30%. And so demand is growing faster than supply. When demand grows faster than supply, you typically see prices go up a little bit. And so I think what we're actually experiencing is some mild inflation in our product because there is not enough of our product, and our product being 1 month and longer furnished. I've noticed you're starting to see some platforms add this type of feature. Zillow and Apartments.com have introduced more functional calendars than they used to have. Furnished used to not be a filter on Zillow. Now it's a filter as opposed to just free text. And then there's certainly a different dynamic, which was short-term rentals have been regulated, not into oblivion, but heavily restricted. And that brings on supply that is actually, I think, helping to solve that gap, but their expectations, they're not charging what they used to in the short term. So I don't think we're seeing the race to the bottom that you're describing in long term or in what you've seen in co-living as a platform. And I think some of it is because we're actually serving a niche that just still doesn't have enough supply in terms of, I'm going to be there for 2 months and I really need good bedding, safe, close, and a location that's appropriate for someone who's an academic or healthcare worker.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's huge if you can find that niche that is being underserved. So in the co-living general like type platform that we have here, most people do have a 6-month minimum requirement or a 12-month minimum requirement or something like that. But we saw the same thing as you. We were starting to see a lot of people asking us, this is before Craig and I partnered probably a couple of years ago, but I had a lot of people asking me like, hey, will you guys take me for 2 months? Will you take me for 3 months? And the educated real estate investor that I am, I'm like, nope, here's my criteria. Nope, move on to the next guy. But more recently, a year ago or so, we did open it up to the shorter stays. So we'll let anyone stay anywhere from 2 months to 12 months. And we just change the rate. If they pick something like 2 months, it'll be a little more expensive. But yeah, we've seen a lot more demand for that too, just qualitatively in my conversations. We didn't track it, but we're definitely seeing that same thing.
If you step out, Miller, and just think about that from a macro perspective, how are people feeling about job security? How are people feeling about affordability? Mm-hmm. People aren't feeling 12 months certain in very large parts of the United States. They're actually really happy to pay extra premium for a 2 or 3 month lease so that they're not locked into the certainty of, I've got to be in this spot for 12 months, and maybe they haven't even started the job they're moving there for. I just took a job outside of Denver. I started in 3 weeks. I was listening to one of these testimonials on Furnished Finder yesterday. I need to be there in 2 weeks. I don't know if I'm going to like this job. I don't know if I'm going to like this town. And you want me to buy furniture and sign a 12-month lease. It's a little bit backwards in terms of the incentives for just like how that ought to work. They need a 2-month lease and they need furniture. And they're actually very likely to keep extending it if you get them in and solve it, because switching costs in housing are hard. And maybe they just love it. And then what you have is a 18-month renter paying a premium. You're thrilled.
Yeah. Yeah, we see the same thing with the extensions too. So ditto on that one too. Yeah, especially in the co-living space and the more general type platform. When you have an 8-bedroom house and someone comes in, they have on top of the job security in the city and all that. Now they're like, oh goodness, am I going to like this house with 7 other people who have random personalities that I don't know about? So after those first 3 months, for everyone out there, that really is your opportunity to hook them, show them how good your product is, great customer service, taking care of maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So that, they go from that 3-month tenant to that 2-year tenant.
Yeah, and what an interesting surprise and delight moment for a tenant. If you signed them to 3 months and they're paying $1,000 a month, and then you offer them 12 months at $850 a month, and they're happy. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when everyone's out there doing their underwriting, we're not. So like I mentioned, we do charge a premium if they sign a 2 or 3 month lease. I think it's 20 to 30% more per month. But that doesn't mean whenever they renew, it's, oh man, I could hook them and get them for 12 months at that same rate. No, we actually do adjust the price back to what it would be for a 10-month or a 12-month or whatever. And it just blows away their expectations, exceeds it. Now they're a fanatic, raving customer for you going forward. So,
and that's just to reinforce a prior point about how our platform works, because I think a lot of people expect it to work like Airbnb, which it very explicitly doesn't. And that piece is like, we get the tenant in your door for you to do your business. They're going to pay you however you want them to pay you. You're going to screen them however you want to screen them. You're going to sign whatever lease you want them to sign. You're going to meet with them on FaceTime. You're like, whatever your process is, we have more in common with a traditional classified site of you're paying us a subscription and we're sending you leads, and then you manage the process so that when you get to that 2 months in, 3 months in, it's time to renegotiate, renew, to where in an Airbnb, there may be more pressure around, okay, I've got to use the platform, I'm going to be penalized, all this stuff. It's got nothing to do with me. That's not my business, which is why the subscription can stay cheap and why I think the value prop resonates with a lot of people who are independent landlords, because you want to do things a little more uniquely you own and you want more control.
Yeah. So from my view, I think companies or listing services like PadSplit, like Airbnb, those are kind of in this like super duper whole service bucket, right? So potential tenants go there, they search for a room or a property, they find it, great. They message you on there, great. They sign their agreements on there. They pay their rent through there. Like a lot of things are taken care of through those services. And by the way, that is why they charge more fees, right? PadSplit, roughly like 20% or so of gross rents per month or in general. Airbnb, I have no idea what it is. But then things like Furnished Finder, Roomies, Zillow, it's much more limited in scope, but it's also a lot like cheaper for that reason, right? So they're going to Furnished Finder, they're going to Zillow. They see you and probably message you there. But when you're ready to sign your lease, you go to DocuSign or whatever. When you're ready to collect rent, you go to Inago, Rent Ready, blah, blah, blah. And that's why those services are cheaper to use, because you're having to bring your own service, bring your own softwares with you.
Yeah, we offer products to help with each of those things, and we don't require any of them.
Okay. Can you tell me about that? The versions of those products that you do offer, just so people
Yeah,
know
so
should they be using
when
those or
you're
looking for an alternative?
if you, let's say you're a new landlord who's signing up your space and you go create a listing, once you've created your listing and it's live, you'll see in your dashboard our tenant screening product, which is powered by TransUnion, our state-specific lease product, which is powered by Rocket Lawyer. We've got a payments product, which is powered by Baseline, and you actually get a year of Baseline Premium included for free. And we're in the process of launching a waiver product, which probably won't be as applicable for co-living given the price point, but for, in particular single family homes, it allows you to basically lower your security deposit requirements and get extra protections around accidental damage or liability, like a combination of what a security deposit would do and what something like air cover might do.
Qualitatively, I know like on Airbnb, no one does security deposits. In fact, like we just had someone sign up, do a booking on Airbnb recently. And like, it's impossible to send them a lease. It's like impossible to ask them for a security deposit. So is that much more common on the Furnished Finder side?
Deposits are certainly much more common. And I hope leases are not just common, but just the universal expectation. It's a lease product. You should have one. It's in both parties' best interest. And you should have one that you've actually gotten expert counsel on. I think deposits will be, in short-term rental, I wouldn't say they've gone to zero, but they're certainly getting towards zero. I don't expect it to get all the way that way in midterm. In long-term, I think a deposit is still, I'd say, universally expected. Maybe the amount is a little bit negotiable. And then I think midterm will end up, like many things, in the middle. I would like it to be a lot less than a month. It still frequently is a month in the midterm space. I think it should be a lot less than that. Probably something more like a third to a quarter of the rent, and maybe you prepay a month's rent or something like that is a little more in the expectation, but everyone's expecting to pay a deposit. And the wild card in our product is, I was talking about how many people are traveling on a stipend. The stipend very rarely covers a deposit. And if you are someone who's traveling on a budget, you may not have, in particular if they're asking for a month's rent, just the cash to get into the house. And so the waiver product helps bridge that gap, because the waiver product is paid for by the landlord and can be built into the rent.
Kind of pivoting a little bit here, just because I'm a little bit curious on like the business side in general. Like you guys are, I feel like there's always this balance of like, you're probably trying to you're trying to either add a bunch of supply or add a bunch of demand. Ideally both at the same exact time. So it's just raising all ships. How are you, what's your strategy for adding demand and also adding supply?
You'd always rather have demand.
Sure.
We are focused on doing the best job possible, getting as much demand in, and then we need supply to fill the demand. In my experience across marketplaces, if you've got the demand, then the people who own additional properties are going to put them on the platform because they see the demand. And then keep in mind, most of our landlords have a single property. They're pretty likely to tell their friends or people who might be in their coaching circles or people who are in their peer group, hey, I did this thing on Furnished Finder and now I make $18,000 a year I didn't used to make. Mm-hmm. And so we really count on the referral network. We put most of our emphasis on improving the demand experience. We do spend a lot of marketing on finding supply, but that's mainly because it's actually hard to reach landlords. It's hard to find them who are in this use case of having a furnished place that is available for flexible lease terms.
Okay. And so at this rate, is most of your demand side, I think everyone that I know has probably heard of Furnished Finder just through word of mouth.
Yeah, I think everyone that you know is not representative of everyone in the U.S. We have a
fair enough. That's why
we have a we have a. It's dangerous in these businesses. Like I work at a tech company. I have for a long time. I'd say in general, employees at tech companies are like 80 to 90% iOS users. Well, 40% of America uses an Android, and so there is still a lot of breaking down some of these misconceptions. And I think it's even more common potentially in co-living or certainly in Furnished Finder versus my time at Vrbo. This is a lower price point non-leisure occasion. This is more like an essential. The expectations are different. What we see is that overwhelmingly we have relatively poor brand recognition for the broader population. And what's really appealing to people when they hear about Furnished Finder is, okay, there actually are occasions where I need a product like that, and I don't want to pay Airbnb 13%. Because if you think about a traveling nurse, maybe they're making a little less than $100,000 a year. They're on a stipend. If you pay Airbnb fees for 4 3-month assignments a year, you're losing almost 2 weeks of take-home pay just in Airbnb fees. You're willing to go send some inquiries and spend a little bit more time on Furnished Finder because It's 2 weeks of take-home pay. This isn't being sure you're a little closer to the beach on the most important spring break of your family's year. This is like, how do you pay for spring break?
Hmm. For sure. And so is the element like, are you doing like paid ads, like that kind of thing,
We
or
do.
is it?
Most of our advertising is video format stuff that's on Instagram, clips, YouTube. We do advertise on Google still, but because we've got such a low unit economics, it's very hard for us to go compete on Google with hotel brands, with Airbnb, with Vrbo.
Yeah.
We don't have the economics to support it. And so we're really focused on just getting the testimonials of our landlords and tenants out there and trying to reach people more virally through social media channels.
Gotcha.
But we spend a lot of money on it. That's at the root of it. That's our value proposition to people listening to this podcast, is that we're here to get you demand. And so we need to be spending a lot of money to bring in as much demand as possible.
Gotcha. And this might be, you may or may not be able to answer this question, but is Furnished Finder, are you guys venture backed or?
We're not. So we were a bootstrapped company. So I joined
Okay.
about 3 years ago.
Okay.
The founders were actually out of originally California, but they're all in the Denver area now. So if you guys ever want to meet the founders, I'm happy to make some introductions for you.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So it was a brother, sister, and the sister's. So yeah, brother, sister, and the sister's husband are the 3 founders. They ran it for 8 years, bootstrapped, no outside capital. And then I joined in late 23 and helped get them liquidity with the private equity firm. And so
Okay.
we're now basically owned by the founders and private equity. And I have brought on about 40 to 50 people from my network of Expedia and HomeAway to help modernize the technology, improve the product, and make it a better experience for tenants and landlords.
Awesome.
Well, what's the plan there, Jeff, for modernizing? Because so our team is running most of our Furnished Finder stuff, so I'm not there too often. But I know when I was running everything 3 years ago, that was a big stigma. In fact, like I remember reading Bigger Pockets, like 30-day stay book, and I was like, oh yeah, Furnished Finder's great, except you have to log in and look at it. So, what are y'all's efforts on modernizing it, and how's that going?
One of my favorite sayings was that Furnished Finder's a natural beauty.
Exactly.
And so it's been most of what we've been doing since I joined. And so really the inside baseball behind it, and anyone who's listening is that it was the entire site was coded starting around 2015 in .NET. And it was just built on and built on and built on in a code base that really doesn't have a lot of support, and certainly like engineers who are enthusiastic to work on it. And so we spent most of my early tenure replatforming the entire thing into a modern architecture so that it would be possible to improve the experience on the site, and most notably in the app. We're basically through complete with modernizing the underlying code base. And so now we're able to roll out a lot more features. And so we've got a real calendar for the first time. One of the things that we've only recently started announcing is that we've actually built out APIs. And so we're in a position to connect to guest platforms, like on the traditional short-term side, it'd be a Guesty or a Hostfully or a Barefoot. And a lot of those are going to be coming out this year. We're looking at how we do that with the long-term. And then I think what you guys are doing in the midterm niche is actually a real missing gap, is that the operating layer for midterm is notably different than short-term and long-term. And there's going to need to be an ecosystem not only of technology, but also of managers who really specialize in it, because the price point for management should also be different. And so we've built out the connectivity so we can get listing content in, rates in, calendar, and messaging. And then we'll start to make it more and more available through the way people want to work, which I totally acknowledge is that most people don't want to log into Furnished Finder every time they have to do something. They expect it to have more modern interfaces and different ways to work. And so I think people are pleasantly surprised with how far we've come, but still have a very long list of how far they want us to go. I think we'll get most of the way through it by the end of next year, if not a little sooner, in terms of a lot of modernizing features. We've got an LLM-driven search experience on the homepage now. You would not have expected that 3 years ago.
No.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So just to make this clear, like the biggest problem that you guys at Furnished Finder right now are trying to solve is to increase the supply of.
As it relates to co-living, it would, as it
Okay.
relates to co-living, our biggest challenge is supply, and in particular, it's supply less than $1,200 a month.
Okay. And what's interesting on our end is our biggest constraint is demand. So, because we can find houses and get them onboarded pretty easily. This is a conversation for offline, but I wonder, like, there's got to be something there, right? If we have the answer to each other's problems.
Yeah, sure. I think that to me, the only wild card on that thesis is how different is the use case of the 8-bedroom co-living space versus what somebody's shopping for at $800 on my site. I expect, if you go all the way back to the context of if they've only got $1,000 to spend, what's their best option? I expect it will still be their best option, in particular in a place that's supply constrained, which are a lot of our places. And what we could collaborate on is how we help best identify what are the zip codes that have the biggest supply constraints. I think it's going to be unlikely you find a lot of places where it's, okay, we need to put in 20 custom built homes with 8 rooms each. I think it's going to be entirely likely that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of areas that need 1 or 2 of these and could fill them in a blink because there's that many people that did a room search and couldn't find anything they wanted.
Yeah. How soon are you in on this product? And the only reason why I ask is we've got a property that'll probably be ready in a month or two. That is right by like somewhat close to Denver. It's about 15 minutes to Denver Airport, and then it's about 15 minutes to Anschutz, which is like the biggest hospital in the Denver area. Probably about 20 minutes to downtown. And I feel like that's what you described earlier.
Yeah, I'd separate 2 things. How close are we to having a co-living specific product that you can buy on our site and see that vision of, okay, here's each room on the floor plan? We're not coding it yet. And so we're not close. What I'd encourage on the use case you're describing is let's say you've got 8 rooms in that house in that location, advertise one.
Yeah.
I don't think if someone with the challenges you're describing doesn't have $200 to try our product and see if it works, I think they have way bigger products. They have way bigger problems for their operating model because it's just $200. And if someone's in a position like you guys are, where they've got multiple homes, multiple rooms, we do discounts if you've got more than 5 rooms. And so we can discount if you're trying to add them in different places and see how that works. And that's the best way to test it.
Okay.
Yeah. And we talk all on the show all the time about how there's lots of listing platforms out there. Some of them are duds, some of them work, some work better than others. So Furnished Finder should absolutely be part of your rotation there of testing platforms. Like even, we've tried platforms that didn't make sense when we tested them. Well, guess what? You better test it again in 6 months because some of them have become bigger players over time or fallen off the wagon or whatever. So this should be part of your rotation for sure.
Yeah. If you think about just the Furnished Finder journey, we are getting 6 times as many booking requests to rooms as we were 2 years ago. It's completely different than someone who tried it 2 years ago because there's 500% of the increase could be an entirely different tenant type or an entirely different region than it used to be. I think that the misperception and what you're describing, Craig, of what I think it does sound like more of a burden of, I'm going to go furnish every one of these rooms. I'm going to add linens. I'm going to add sheets. I'm going to add the desk. I'm going to do all this stuff. I don't think you have to do that to try Furnished Finder. I think you could either disclaim your photos of here's what the room looks like right now. Here's what the room looks like with AI, with bedding and the desk I would outfit. Just be like, if you sign a 3-month lease or more, I'm going to either give you a budget or go buy the bedding you want at Target and a desk and the 3 pillows and whatever else, and just treat it as an allowance. That's almost like the multifamily equivalent of a signing bonus. This month, gets this much money back. If you sign a 3-month lease, you get this much money to go buy what you need for the room. And I'll have it there shipped and ready when you get there.
Oh, okay, Jeff. I really love this idea because in mine and Craig's portfolio, probably 90% is unfurnished rooms and 10% are furnished. We're pretty limited in what we can put on places like Furnished Finder, Airbnb, even PadSplit requires furnishing. So this will be such a great way, Craig. If we could probably even launch 3 or 4 houses, and you're talking about demand, like how quickly can we fill these up? Well, that's one little tip or trick that you could get to spice up some extra demand. If that's in your listing, hey, you get to pick out whatever furnishings you want. And if part of our goal is to get towards more furnished rooms, which it is, what a great way to attract people and make it their own.
It is and you could even include in your description, you should absolutely do it for yourself. This is what I'm going to go buy to furnish the room. It's going to have a full or a twin bed, a mattress, 2 sheet sets, 3 towels, this type of desk and a chair, and it's going to cost me whatever, $700. So you know that the first month is basically going to pay for the furniture that you're going to have in there. And then if things are going well, you're able to charge a premium forever on the furniture that's paid for by that first guest coming in.
Yeah, that's great. Miller, I'm glad that's your realm because I wouldn't know how to do it. But
Yep. Yeah. So Jeff, just a couple other things I want to ask you before we wrap up here. So for people who are interested in using the platform, I want them to know how to do it and how to best do it. So different platforms have different tips and tricks, different ways to optimize different things. So I'm going to ask you about a couple of these, but whenever someone's going on and listing their room, do you have any tips and tricks around photos, listing description, things like that to make it better converting?
Overwhelmingly, I think Either you need to be a very high quality photographer or hire a professional. Get the lighting right, get the angles right. I very much encourage people, in particular in the co-living product, to have floor plans. And the private shared bath dynamic is huge. It is trickier to have an unfurnished place and advertise it unless you're specific around either the allotments or what you're planning to buy. The benefit of it is for that first renter, it's actually a pretty big enticement because new is really nice. Knowing you're the first person with the towels, with the sheets, that sort of thing. And then pricing we offer, I would probably encourage people to either progressively lower your price from what your aspiration is, depending on what happens with demand. Or for your first booking, if you're really trying to lease up, I'd probably be aggressive on your first price point because it's unlikely to be a 12 or 6 month rental. You've actually got more flexibility in how you use those to lease up and come through. We accept a single price point, but I think you could also put in the price point, which is your target, and then offer discounts for longer stays, and that can be ambiguous.
Great. Sounds great. And shameless plug, everyone out there, don't forget, we do have a room dynamic pricing product called Co-Living Pro, and it calculates that room price and drops it over time, just like you're talking about. And it even prompts you to go post on Furnished Finder. Although we don't have that direct integration yet, we're talking to Jeff. So just... Hey guys, the tool I've been talking about forever, Co-Living Pro, is now officially live. So some of the biggest problems that I've encountered around co-living are always on the marketing side. So you can think of Co-Living Pro as a marketing software or a tool to help you overcome some of these marketing issues that we all run into in the co-living space. So number one, it helps you determine what to price your room at and then how to change that price over time. And that's actually a free tool. You can go there to colivingpro.io, and there's a little like rentometer type tool where you can punch in an address, punch in a zip, punch in a city, and kind of see what rooms might rent for there. But it does that for you. And number two, historically, for us to keep our rooms operating at full capacity, especially when we're off a pad split, it's meant that we had to post on Zillow, post on Zumper, post on Apartments, post on Roomies, post on all these places. And with just a 5-bedroom house, that's already 20 listings right there, which is a lot of work, a lot of time and effort. So Co-Living Pro helps you solve this. You just make your listing on this one site and it pushes it to Zillow, pushes it to Zumper, and we even support any platform with the manual listing manager. So you can still be on Apartments, still be on Roomies, still be on Pad Split, still be on anything. And it's kind of a wizard that helps you stay organized, your VA stay organized. It shows you what rooms need to be posted where with just quick copy paste prompts. Copy your rent over, copy your description over, boom, you're good to go. And number three, historically, now that you're on all these sites, we always had to hop in daily or at least weekly to keep these listings up at the top, keep the pricing up to date. So Co-Living Pro solves that for you too. It's making those adjustments for you on a daily basis, even an hourly basis, to make sure your listings are updated across your platforms. So you guys know everything I've always done has been free. The community is free. This podcast is free. I'm super proud of that and definitely going to keep doing all that. But this tool is paid, but I feel comfortable doing that because the numbers are honestly pretty insane. So if you go to Co-Living Pro, there is a calculator where you can do this for your own situation. But let's take that example earlier of the 1 5-bedroom property. From that, we estimate you'll make an extra $1,400 a year in extra rent and reduced vacancy. And that is 5x what the tool costs. Let me say that again. This tool produces 5x the return of what it costs. So in this example, that's actually a better return than most co-living properties themselves, being around 15, 16%. So seriously, to me, this is a no-brainer. So head over to colivingpro.io. This is the tool that I built for my own business, and I'm so happy that I can finally share it with you guys. And back to the episode.
And, my last piece of advice, Craig, on it is think about what someone's internet search is if they're looking for a room near where your room's going to be. And that kind of goes back to what's the cheapest hotel nearby? How much of a discount can you merchandise versus either potentially a room on Furnished Finder, which I think is a great place to go find benchmarks, or a studio on one of the more major platforms and be in a spot of, hey, the cheapest studio within 5 miles of this is $1,400 a month. And I can get you in a room for $900 a month. Like there's a lot, and think through some of those dynamics of, okay, then how would you describe your shared amenities, your common spaces relative to being in a studio? And I think a lot of that is the magic is remembering someone's doing an internet search and they're probably going to see your product on one of the platforms next to either Airbnb product or Furnished Finder product, or they're going to be on Google or in an LLM where they're probably going to see something that feels more like a motel or an extended stay.
Gotcha. All right. And last one for you before we start wrapping things up. How should people be using the messaging features? So, all right, great. They know how to make great listings. How does Furnished Finder work? Are people reaching out to you or you reaching out to them? How does that work?
Yeah, this is the place we have made the most progress in 2 years. And so we have a fully modern messaging system now, and it supports templates, auto replies, it supports emojis, it supports click to call. It's really terrific. In general, what you would expect as a landlord is that response time matters a lot. Most of our tenants are reaching out to multiple landlords. Like within an hour, they're going to reach out to 3 to 4 landlords. And that's a little bit of a jump ball. And so replying fast matters. And then because we're a classified site, we actually give you quite a bit more information. And so it's not just that you can reply in messaging. You've got, in most cases, the travelers providing a phone number. Give them a call, offer to have a FaceTime, be proactive about, I'm a real human with a real home. Would you like to see it? Would you like to do a walkthrough? Do you want to? We don't prevent you from including a URL if you've got your own product or a YouTube walkthrough or something like that. Check it out here. Here's how to learn more about it. We power a LinkedIn integration that I think is pretty unique, and that you can ask the tenant to authenticate with LinkedIn. And then similarly, they can ask to see you on LinkedIn, which for you two would be quite compelling, so that it just provides a different layer of trust on this is a person who's not going to waste my time. Beyond that, we encourage people to keep messages on platform, but it's not a requirement. The thing we're really paying attention to is, did you reply in a timely fashion?
Got it. Awesome. So that's your biggest lever, everyone. Regardless of platform, by the way, speed to lead, get those responses in quick. All right, Craig, you ready to start wrapping this thing up?
Yeah, you know what time it is, Miller?
I think I know what time it is. It's time for the big three. Oh man, Jeff's the first guy to laugh when we did it. Wow.
Oh, it's because it was so bad.
Yeah, maybe that was the worst one so far. Craig usually leads it.
Yeah,
I think
so maybe you
really
should lead it. Maybe that's our test case.
Yeah, there we go. All right, Craig, you want to kick us off?
I'll go first. Yeah, Jeff, what's one tool or system you use in your business that you literally could not live without, but you cannot say Furnished Finder?
I think I want to offer two things. One, I'm a little unlike some of your other guests in that I'm not running a co-living property. I'm running a marketplace. What I would offer as someone who's got 3 short-term rentals, and I am in the market for trying to get a midterm rental, but for those businesses, the thing I couldn't work without at this point in my life is actually, at this point, it's help from a manager. They're all managed. When I was self-managing them, the depth of my call book, like the operating play around what's my backup to my backup for the different handyman features and how I'm going to get a cleaner and short term, that sort of thing. I think that was the original glitch that hung me up the most, was just not having enough breadth of support. From a software tool now, it would probably be ChatGPT because it does a lot of that for you if you're using it well. But from a like me growing up as a rental property owner, it was definitely that, like building my Rolodex.
Yeah, for sure. Love it.
Awesome. All right, question number 2, and we'll pivot this one too a little bit. But okay, what is one? So you have short terms. It sounds like you don't have co-living, but maybe you've heard co-living stories. So either way, what's your biggest horror story that you've heard about tenants in a Furnished Finder property in your own short term or in a co-living property? Story time.
Okay, the biggest horror story. This is I have my original short-term investment is on Lake LBJ, which is about an hour and 15 minutes from Austin. I had renters there in the summer. I think it was 104 degrees outside. And I had someone there working on installing electrical down to like the water line. We were putting in a beach pavilion, and he cut through the sewage line. And so it was a sewage pump. We're up on a hill over the lake, and he didn't tell us he did it. And so I found out like maybe a day later from the guests because the sewage was rolling down the hill towards the lake. And that was I had to get in the car and find that person that I referenced because my plumber was not available, and like go do the gnarliest PVC repair of my life. And that was the day I knew I needed a manager.
Oh man, that's
it was terrible.
That's a tough one. That sounds horrible. Did you document it? Usually the horror stories make the best later stories.
It was terrible. I've definitely got pictures of the pipe, and I definitely do not. I mean, it's more of like the type of thing I talk to my therapist about than a type of thing I usually talk on podcasts about.
Yeah, fair enough. Well,
yeah, Craig, I don't think people post those videos or those pictures.
I mean, it would probably hit off. And sorry, we cannot be your therapist. You wouldn't want us as your therapist. All right. outside of this podcast in our community, typically we ask, where are you learning the most about co-living today? But I guess we'll just ask where you're learning the most about. If you got an answer about co-living, we'll take it. But otherwise, where are you doing the most learning and educating it lately to sharpen your sword?
It's actually, I have a 105-pound dog, and boy, does he like to walk. And I have become such a voracious listener of podcasts. And honestly, I think 2 years ago, I don't think I listened to any podcasts. And now I listen to a ton of podcasts. And I've actually gotten a lot more trusting of like the platform algorithms of like, because you like the co-living show, try this. And so I'll just try podcasts, and a lot of times they're total duds, but a lot of times it's actually like really interesting content, and I pick up new things. In particular, because a lot of what I'm doing is learning about a category where I'm not currently an investor, and so I talk to our customers and I talk to our tenants. But I really do learn a lot from podcasts, and a plug for the one we've got, which is called Landlord Diaries. There's just really interesting anecdotes in there from real world operators. And I think that's where you get the most, is from someone who's had to deal with the plumbing or the pipe burst or the tenant that left too early. Not only because it's relatable, because it's something that you can actually start to think about, how would I have handled that in a way that's not just the academics and the philosophy of it.
I love it. Amazing. This is really dumb, but it just came to mind, so I'm going to say it. When we used to watch this dog, and when we lived in Denver, we used to watch this dog all the time, and I'd always take it for walks. And I usually, when I would walk or run, I would listen to headphones, listen to a podcast. But for some reason, when I was with the dog, I felt bad about not being like
Present.
with the dog. And then my wife was like, you realize that there's no way you're having a conversation with this dog, right? I'm like, I know, but I would feel so rude. Anyway, that's what that reminded me of.
That is incredible. And,
So yeah,
Barney and my relationship is very secure in that sense. I let him sniff what he wants to out there, and I listen to whatever shows I want to out there.
Yeah, that is good that you've got a secure relationship with your dog. I need to get there with ours. All right.
Awesome. To wrap things up, where can listeners find more about you, Jeff? Where can they learn about you and connect with you?
Best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn, active in terms of replying to people and staying involved. Best place to learn about me is probably on a handful of podcasts I've done and through just the Furnished Finder community. And so encourage people to learn more about what we're building here and the product, and happy to be helpful to your community any way I can.
Thanks so much, Jeff. It was super good to have you on. Super valuable episode. And I'm sure co-living is going to be a big part of Furnished Finder in the future. I'm excited to
I'm quite optimistic.
Transition.
There's of anything we're involved in, it's the thing that I'd say has the most buzz right now of where people are spending energy and excited. And I think that so much of it is that you're solving a real societal problem in a way that more pickleball, not as far from the beach, isn't solving as much.
Believe it or not, that is a fact.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Jeff. We super appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Jeff.
And that was Jeff Hurst Miller. What'd you think of Jeff?
Yeah, super awesome. Really glad that we had him on. It was a fun peek into the future of the platform in addition to what's going on there now. So really like to see, what do we need to be doing now to get into a platform like in the early days? And then that'll help us stay ahead in the future whenever they do get more and more into co-living. So yeah, we already use them. We're excited to keep using them. And actually, one thing that was fun though, I like some of the business questions that you asked him, just to peek behind the curtain of what's happening at Furnished Finder. And I think that's a good lesson for everyone, no matter what business person I'm talking to. Like I went out recently with my uncle-in-law and his friend who's a dentist, and he owns this dental practice. Great. I'm asking him all sorts of questions about like, how is he marketing for patients and stuff like that? Because there's a lot of crossover between businesses. So anyway, it was fun to see a peek behind the curtain too.
Yeah. And I guess, just a tip, as you guys are meeting new business people, whether they're in real estate or not, people love talking about their business. And if you want a way to it's like talking about their kids, right? Like, how do you get someone to really like you? But be genuinely interested about their business. And I honestly love talking about business and scale and all that. And I love learning about other people's businesses. So all those questions I asked were 100% genuine. And yeah, it was cool to get a little bit of peek behind the curtain and what they're doing and how they're structured and all that kind of stuff. Because I tell you what, there's a lot of parallels, but also if you can help identify a problem of another business and you've got a solution to that problem, we've done this now multiple times, you can create a really big potential partnership that could blow both your businesses out of the water. So that's ultimately a big reason why I do that too, is I like to understand where the problem is in other people's businesses if we've got a solution for it.
Awesome. Great. And before we wrap up here, if you guys are listening to the show and you want to keep learning about co-living, definitely go check out the co-living community on Facebook. And we actually brought in, or whenever this episode gets posted, we will post this question in there too, to kind of get everyone kind of rallied around this idea of co-living around midterm, get everyone talking so we can make the best of it. So the question that we're going to post in there is, do you think midterm rentals and co-living are starting to overlap more, or are they still two totally different strategies? This is kind of morphed over time, so we're definitely curious to see what you guys are thinking about that, and we'll interact with you over there in the group.
All right. Miller, anything else before we head out for the week?
Nope, let's get out, Craig.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. You can find us on Instagram. I am Craig Curelop.
I am Miller McSwain.
Peace.
Peace.